All right. Welcome to episode number 10, also known as work-life balance. Now, the work-life balance that we're speaking of happens to specifically talk about the work-life balance within the trades, something that is vastly different. When I wrote the initial article on the website some years back, you can find ample articles online for work-life balance that deal with office stuff. That's great. That's fine. I couldn't find a single one that even attempted to address work-life balance to some degree when it comes to the trades. I wrote the article. Now we're putting the podcast out. I'm not saying it's easy. Work-life balance in the trades is exceptionally difficult to try and achieve. However, the promise I'll make to you is this. If you will listen to the podcast episode, maybe even go back and read the article, take some of the things that we're talking or you read about and then begin to mull them over in your mind and do the absolute best that you can to implement some of these things in your life for you and your loved ones. I promise you that the effort is worth it, because you can grind all you want. You can always make money. Work is always there, but you cannot get your time back. Time is the most precious resource you have. So keep that in mind as you listen to this podcast episode. Let's get to it. All right. Well, we are live. And for those of you who are at YouTube or Rumble, you can clearly see the video here. I am not in the studio this week. I am actually at a specific convention. I've had a lot of good discussion, and it seems timely to talk about this podcast episode and the topic. And the topic is the work-life balance. Now, I know for those of us in the trades, we kind of chuckle about this and think, okay, what kind of work-life balance can I really hope to achieve? Because in reality, we live by feast or famine. And we've talked, quite a bit here on the platform about the opportunity in the trades. There's a significant amount of opportunity, probably in reality, for about the next 20 years for sure. There's so much infrastructure work and manufacturing onshoring and whatnot that it's just an amplified opportunity. Well, the reason why that this topic is timely in nature is because we have a shortage. We have a shortage. Right now, the number that's tossed around is about 500,000 in a decade from now. When the latter half of the baby boomers retire and go off into the sunset to enjoy their retirement, that figure is about 2 to 3 million in about 10 more years. That's a pretty alarming number when you think about it. So what's ultimately going to happen, though, because that's going to be the case, this is a very long-form strategy to recruit and retain people in the trades. But in the meantime, ultimately what's going to happen is that those individuals who are already in the trades, who have got 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, you're going to see an essentially greater opportunity to work overtime, to work double time, maybe travel some, whatever the case may be. And if that's all you want to do, that's perfectly fine. If you're single and you're not, it doesn't matter to you. It doesn't enter your radar that, okay, well, I need to, be looking to establish some kind of work-life balance. Maybe that's the case. But if you have a family, and many of us do, then this particular topic is geared to you, because your work-life balance you need to figure this out. And what's going to happen ultimately is the industry is going to want to rely on you even more than they do now. And it's nice to be relied on, but it's also not nice to be overworked. And that's going to be the reality for a lot of people in the next 2 decades. So when we think about feast or famine, which is, it seems like it's going to be feast for 20 years, we need to be very aware of the pitfalls that come around from work-life balance issues, okay? So first thing I want to say, starting off on the podcast, is that it's not static, meaning you're not going to go, okay, well, I'm going to establish a work-life balance today and then tomorrow or 6 months down the road or whatever, that not change. It's not true. It's almost like hitting a moving target. It's going to be very difficult for you to do, but it's worth it. So realizing right out the gate that it's not static. It's always going to be something that I've got to do and to reevaluate, look at things. It's kind of like a budget. You got some things coming in, and you've got to sit here and figure out exactly what's going on, and you might have to revisit it from time to time. The exact same thing when it comes time to try and achieve your work-life balance. And so right out the gate, we need to acknowledge that. The second thing that I want to, kind of talk to everybody about when it comes to this is I'm going to make the assumption that you are at least you have the possibility to be home most nights. You're home. You're not traveling away. If you are traveling, I would seriously consider the cost. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from traveling, making money, etc. It's all a great thing. All I'm saying is consider the cost. What are you giving up in return for it? And is it worth it? If you have kids, is it worth missing the Little League games? Is it worth, the time that you cannot get back for the money? I can always make more money, but I cannot get my time back. And that's what we need to be thinking about. So if you are at home, or you're working for a local firm, or your family can travel with you, I think there is a big case to be made, to be honest with you, especially if you're going to travel, that your kids get pulled out of public school. They get to see a lot of the world if they're able to travel with you, and they're definitely going to get a better educational quality from you. But I'm going to assume then that you are somehow, some way around your family, at least more than the guy who's traveling out in the field, that you have the ability to see them on a regular basis. And if that's the case, then I cannot overemphasize enough that eating around the family table, whether it's breakfast, whether it's dinner, if you have the ability to do either one, sitting around the family table and just talking, allowing your kids and your spouse to sit here and just tell you about their day. It gets you connected. I cannot tell you how many guys, ironworkers, electricians, pipe fitters, etc., that I have talked to, that their kids, they have a disconnect. They don't talk to them. They don't confide in them. They haven't built that relationship, that bond with their kids, if you will. And then when they get older, they go off and do their own thing, and they don't spend nowhere near as much time with their family as they wish they would have. Seems to be probably the biggest regret when it comes to, okay, well, I worked all these hours in the trade. The trade does not care. I mean, if I'm being blunt, the trade doesn't care. You know who does care? It's your family. And I did a short podcast episode, I think it was about a month and a half ago or something, where there is a topic that's circulating the internet, that by the time your kids are 12 years old, you will have spent 75% of all the time you ever will with them. And by the time they turn 18, that you will have spent 90% of all the time you ever will spend with your kids, you have spent with them. And I was looking for it earlier before I wanted to come on this podcast and kind of data dump for you guys. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And there's multiple websites who are referencing this, this thing that's kind of scattered around on the internet. You can't get your time back. So is it worth it then to chase the almighty dollar? Are you even considering the costs? Now, if you have the ability to be at home, there is relatively little that has as much of an impact as sitting down next to your family over a meal, breaking bread, and just allowing each other to talk about your day. It's really almost extremely therapeutic in a way, and it builds that bond, and it helps you to achieve some measure of a work-life balance because you're actually allowing them to talk to you and build that bond that ideally will go with you when they become adults. They maintain honest communication with you. It's definitely something you're going to want to do. In my own home, we've had a sticker that I bought from, I think it was Home Depot, for probably 13 years now. And all it is a sticker that has it's a circle with a line through it, and it has a phone in the middle, basically saying, "Look, we're going to come and sit down at this table. No phones allowed at the table. No electronics. We're just going to sit here and we're just going to talk." And you'd be surprised at how well your family time is when you exclude electronics. That's what we do, and I highly recommend you do the same to begin that process, right, of trying to build some form, some fashion, some way, somehow, a work-life balance that you and your family can be proud of. The next thing that I would recommend to you is to unplug at home. Many people, like if you're a foreman, you're a general foreman, superintendent, project manager, whatever, or you have you're on call, as it were. So many of us are connected electronically, and we think our phones, they're nice and they do give us access to a lot, but they're also like a ball and chain. They're almost like a form of slavery because we're still connected to work. I'm still tethered to it like a ball and chain. I can't break free, and it's ruling my day. And some of us bring far too much work home. And in reality, what we're doing actually when we do this is we are taking more work on ourselves when the company probably is understaffed. And I get it. And I'm not trying to be unsympathetic to that issue of we don't have enough people and whatnot. But are you considering the cost? The cost to you that from a work-life perspective, are you always, and us men in particular, are exceptionally guilty with this because we're very good at work, and we usually like to do what we're very good at. And so the ability to achieve a work-life balance is going to increase if you're intentional about it. And also when you decide, okay, I'm going to unplug when I'm at home. All right. I'm going to leave my work phone on the dresser. The only certain people have my personal number, whatever the case may be. However you seek to achieve it, I think it's very worth your time to think about that. And how you can achieve that work-life balance by unplugging your electronics, whether it's laptop or work phone or whatever, from that. Also, in the unplug realm is unplugging from personal devices for entertainment. I have friends who call it the scroll. I'm caught in the scroll. I'm caught in the death spiral. I'm caught just consuming, surfing the internet, whatever terminology you want to use. When you look back and you can look through your phone to see how, which apps and how much time you've spent on there. And most people don't seriously consider how much time. But if you're in the same room with your family and you're all on electronics, you're all on devices, and you're not getting that quality time that you can't get back, by the way, you're not getting that. You have a very unhealthy, to a degree, work-life balance. You're not in pursuit of it. And so there's a greater difficulty then in having some kind of conversation with your family about achieving some form of work-life balance. Unplugging at home, work electronics, and personal electronics. Maybe it's a game night. For my family, we do Friday night is pizza and TV night where we sit down as a family and we watch something. But maybe instead of being on your phone and you don't want to watch TV because maybe you watch TV during the week with your family, you do games or you play, you put whatever it happens to be that can bring you and your kids together or your spouse together that you might not do on a more rare occasion that helps to build that family bond. Because at the end of the day, which we'll talk about towards the end of this here, the podcast, but work is always there. It's never ending. It's you who's getting older. It's your family who's getting older. It's your kids who are getting older. It's that time that's slipping away. And I am telling you today, if you can begin the process of trying to establish a work-life balance, you will be better off. And unplugging at home is certainly one of them. The next one, this one, sometimes when I mention this to people, they kind of get a little irritated because I'm talking about shelving your hobbies. And you think, well, listen, I want a work-life balance. I want to work so I can live and then go out and do the hobbies that I want to go do. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from hobbies. All I'm saying is that most of us, if we're honest with each other, that what we end up doing is we work a lot and we think intuitively that I'm working a lot to provide my family with everything that I didn't have or that that I want to give them. And then a portion of our time, and for many of us, it's too much of a portion of our time, is spent, we're golfing, we're fishing, we're hunting, or whatever, and our family gets the leftovers. And we think, all right, and I've had so many conversations about this. We think we're doing our family good by providing them with a multitude of things, whether it's something that it's tangible, like it's a vacation or a TV or game systems or entertainment, whatever. We think that we're providing them with this, and in reality, what they really want is time with you. That's what they want. That's why the work-life balance is so important to pursue. And so many of us, if I may, overindulge in our hobbies. And I have a very personal example on the article on the website where a friend of mine who was in the car industry actually evaluated his time. He said, I work a lot, and which he did. It was nothing to work, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And he was evaluating everything that he had going on. And he said, okay, well, my one day off, I'm going to play golf. And he said, maybe, and he started to think to himself, maybe I'm spending too much time in my hobbies, which is exactly what he was doing. And so he decided to shelf it for a little bit in order to spend more time with his family. And that's what I'm telling you today too. Seriously consider your hobbies and where you're at with those. And if maybe you might want to shelf them in order to have more time with your family. Now, I know some people do not want to hear this because they want to just go and engage in their hobbies. And you might be able to bring your family along. Maybe there's a family hobby that you all can establish. Maybe it's camping or hiking or whatever, and everybody's on board and you can go do that. It could be, you guys are doing exercising together, which is probably a really good idea, actually. Whatever it happens to be, if you have a hobby that no one else wants to engage in, but you really love it, you might want to actually consider the possibility of shelving it just for a little while so that you can spend more time with your family overall in the pursuit of having a better work-life balance. I think it's a worthy endeavor for you, okay? The next one is one we're going to camp at just a little bit, and for a good reason. Now, this next point is called the power of no. This is going to be a significant thing to talk about in the coming years because there's going to be so many people who are going to be asked to go above and beyond, to work more, to work more, to work more. And that the pursuit of money sounds great because of the shortage. It's going to be because of the shortage. But that the pursuit of money sounds great. But what is it costing you? Are you seriously thinking about all that it's costing you and what you're going to have to do? If you have weighed it all out and decided that this is worth the squeeze, is worth the juice, then carry on. But the problem is most of us don't think about that at all, as a matter of fact. We just do and do and do and do. I'm never going to say no to overtime. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Meanwhile, the time that you have with your loved ones is slipping through your fingers like sand in an hourglass. Gone forever. And with the shortage comes more reliability on those of us who are in the trades today. More is going to be placed on us, more is going to be asked of us, and more is going to be expected. And I am telling you today, when you learn the power of no, where you're like, listen, I'm not working. I'm not doing it. I'm going home. I am not working this weekend. We are going here, here, here. Now I fully realize that, work-life balance it's like a marathon, right? It is we have a feast or famine thing, right? And I realize that sometimes our work-life balance is askew. one way or the other. One way we're working, we're on a job, and this job is 6 10s. I'm working 6 days a week. I'm working 10 hours a day. I'm making 20 hours of overtime a week. I'm putting that money aside to do things so that when, more reasonable, or famine as we would call it, times come about, I have money put off to the side and I can go spend time with my family. There are times, shutdowns and whatnot, where work-life balances become, they're skewed one way or the other. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem lies when most of us allow our work-life balance to get way out of hand, where a lot of work, almost no life, and we run on that for years. We run on it for years and years and years. And meanwhile, we've lost contact and connectivity with our kids. They don't see us as much. The bonds aren't there. Our spouse can often feel neglected, that we haven't been talking to them, all of that stuff. And that whole thing right there, when we can learn the power of no. Someone says, well, you want to come work for me, because this is what's going to happen. The headhunting industry is going to increase. There are going to be more recruiters that are going to be calling people probably at record levels in the next 10 years, because everybody wants to poach you from the current company you're working for. It's not completely negative in and of itself, especially if somebody says, well, I just want you to work for me. I want you to work local, and you'll be home every night, and you're only going to work 40 hours a week. It's usually that last one that's the problem. However, most people are going to be enticed by the money. They're going to be enticed by the money. Someone's going to come and throw a boatload of money at you, put it down in front of you, and say, I want you to come work for me. I want you to be a traveling superintendent, or whatever the case may be. And you'll take it because you'll just see the dollar signs rolling in the eyes. And we don't even consider the cost. So, in the end, when we learn the power of no, we begin to think about that. We begin to, I'm not going to get together with you this weekend. I'm going to take my family and we're going to go do this. I'm not going to work that overtime job. I'm not doing it. I'm going to go and do this instead. And what we are effectively doing then is we are prioritizing our family and our work-life balance. This is also true for those of you who are single, because you might work if allowed, companies will work you to death. They will work you and work you and work you and work you, because they don't care about your work. They don't care about your work-life balance for the most part. That's on you to achieve. And most of us don't take the bull by the horns and decide, okay, well, I'm going to work on my work-life balance and I'm going to make it a priority and I am going to change things up. Most of us don't do that. So to that end, I highly encourage you to consider the power of no, especially because of all the things that we've got coming up in the next decade, with shortages and needing people to work all this overtime, and you got skill and experience, and I want to use that to my advantage for the company and for the end user, and blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm not unsympathetic to contractors and the blight and everything like that. But I'm telling you, if you don't try to establish and work out a work-life balance on your own, what will happen is that contractors will run roughshod right over you. You will become old faithful. They will come to you time and time and time again, and unrealistic expectations will become the norm. You will be expected to work. They just know, if I go to this person's going to work 80 hours a week for me, and they're going to do it for years to come. You have to be mindful and prioritize your time with your loved ones for work-life balance. All right. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's the marathon of this. Earlier, I said at the beginning, your work-life balance is not static. Okay. So you don't just decide today, this is how I'm going to achieve my work-life balance, and expect. There's too many variables for you to sit here and expect that it's just going to stay the same. It's not going to. So because that's the case, you have to seriously consider a period of time where you might have a work-life balance that's off one way or the other. You got to shut down. You got whatever. You got to go work that out. That's fine. But this is a marathon. So you have to continually look at, the way you're progressing, the way you're doing things and whatnot, and make adjustments periodically. This is also why we talk about here on the podcast, as well as article form, that you should set goals and you should review those goals periodically. Whether it's once a quarter, half a year, once a month is how we do things around this piece. But if you, whatever, so you can make adjustments. Whatever you do, if you decide today, listen to this podcast and you go over there and you read the article and you decide, you know what? He is right. I need to work on my work-life balance. I need to establish a work-life balance, and I need to establish the priority to do so. Be very intentional. That's great. You've made a decision. But the more specificity you put into it, the greater likelihood you will at actually achieving it. Let me give you an example of this. If I told you, I said, I want to lose some weight. Well, that's very ambiguous. You're not telling me enough information. You want to lose some weight? Sounds great. What you really mean is you want to lose fat, but you get the point. I want to lose some weight. But then if you said, I want to lose 50 pounds, okay, I have a little bit more to go on. But then if you came to me and we refined it down even further and you said, I want to lose 50 pounds by the end of the year, and it's January, now I have an actionable goal. Now I can sit and say, how many pounds per month must I lose throughout the 12-month period to lose 50 pounds throughout this whole year? And then you stop at the end of every month and say, okay, have I achieved my goal? And if not, why not? What do I need to tweak in pursuit of the goal? It's the same thing with your work-life balance. Are you going to get it right out the gate? No. So what you're going to end up doing then is prioritize things. Is my time with my kids, is that why I want greater work-life balance? Do I want more time with my spouse? Is that what I need to work on, work-life balance? Maybe it's both. Maybe you are single and you want to have more hobbies. Maybe you want to spend more time with your own mother and father because, again, time is fleeting and it moves faster the older we get, or at least that's the perception because of the perceived milestones. Whatever your reasons are, take the time and write them down so that you know from a work-life perspective, okay, well, here's what I actually think that I want to try to achieve. I want to do this and this and this. Then now you have why you want to do it. And we're going to begin with how are you going to do it? I've given you some tips, eating around the family table, unplugging when at home, shelving your hobbies maybe, and most certainly understanding and using the power of no. Maybe in your own life, there are other things that I have not listed that while you were listening to this podcast, you decided, well, there's something else that I can do, that I can take that specific thing, implement it in my life in the pursuit of establishing a better work-life balance. That's great. Because what's effectively going on if you're taking the time to write down, the why, and then you're automatically thinking through the how, you are miles ahead of most people who never really ultimately consider what they should be doing. For most people, to be blunt, this topic never really comes up. They do not think about it in the same breath that you, listener, think about it. But it's worth every thought that you give it. It's worth every time you put a list together. It's worth every time you revisit at the end of a month. Am I achieving the pursuit of success? And success in this instance looks like greater work-life balance. Understand that you're going to have some times that are off. It's a marathon. So keep that in mind when you are looking to implement this. And the last thing, and I'll end the podcast with this, is to recognize that work is always going to be there. You might work for a particularly bad company, and they might seek to exploit you day in and day out. But you might work for a great company, and that company wants They want to help you. They view you as a very valuable resource. They want to pour into your life, all of the above. But the reality is that whether you work for a bad company or a good company, the day you die, your job will be replaced, or they will seek to replace you. It's a fact. They're going to need somebody in the positions. They're going to need somebody to run the jobs. They're going to need somebody on the bolt-up gang. They're going to need somebody running conduit for electricians. They're going to need somebody, fitting the pipe. They're going to need somebody else. Your job, whether you work for a bad company or a good one, is going to go out there. It's going to hit the streets, and they're going to look to replace you. Work will always be there. The time with your family, however, is very fleeting. It is always moving faster than what you think. It's always. Time is ticking right on by. And most people that I have ever met, I've never heard anybody say at all in my discussions, because most people will try and circle around to this. Most people, when we have these conversations, will talk about this subject. And every single one of them, bar none, I've never heard somebody say, I wish that I would have worked more. They almost instinctively, intuitively tell me, I wish I would have spent more time with my family. I worked too much. So work is always going to be there, but your family will not. The idea is to stay married to your spouse and to spend time with her, but your kids will grow up. And you can talk to some old heads on the job. They're going to tell you, the older you get, the faster it seems to go by, and you blink and your kids are gone. How much time did you spend with them? Or were you too busy working? I'm not trying to discourage anybody from grinding. All I'm saying is consider the cost. The pursuit of a work-life balance is well worth the energy, time, and intentionality that you put into it. All right? Well, thank you for listening to this podcast episode when we started talking about this very important topic of work-life balance. I hope that you will revisit this podcast episode and the talking points going forward, because it's going to become even more important with the skilled trade shortage or unprecedented labor demand, however you want to term it, and share it out, because I know there's a lot of people who could probably use a little bit of kick in the pants to say, okay, well, maybe I need to work on my own work-life balance. This has been The Wealthy Ironworker. See you guys on the next podcast.